American accent. I try to tone it down when I'm talking to Australians. But before I get started, I'm going to talk a bit about what I call engagement marketing, which is something, I didn't coin the phrase, but it's something that's been sort of growing in the US, particularly around social media and sort of a much more integrated marketing experience and how to scale your business. But before I start on that, I just wanted to kind of get a sense of who all you guys are as an audience. So how many of you already have an operating business in the US? I'm assuming very few of you. Okay, cool. And then in terms of sectors that you're in, how many of you are in software and internet? Okay. Life sciences? Cool. And then other technology like sort of hard sciences, I guess you'd say. Okay, good. How many of you would say that your customers are consumers? Okay. And then businesses, predominantly. And the final category, because there is often a final category, which is really B2B2C, which is your immediate customer is a business, but your solution is really used by end user consumers. Are there any of you guys in the room? Okay, cool. Good. So, yeah, so I've a little bit about me just to start off. This is my wife and my daughter on the top right, and my daughter down in the bottom right. I moved to the US in 2000. At the time, I was a general partner with Allen & Buckridge, the venture capital firm. I was a very young VC. I'd actually come out of law and consulting, so I hadn't really come out of operating roles in tech companies and so on. And it was in the last boom, so everything moved really fast. I thought I knew everything, and now I know that I knew pretty much nothing. So I rode the wave with Allen & Buckridge. I was based up here in San Francisco. We were co-located with Broadview in Foster City, which was a big investment bank focusing on technology. They are now acquired by Jefferies. And so I was sort of the US end of the operation, helping to evaluate Australian technology for bringing it to the US, looking at what was already here and so on, and building a lot of our relationships with US VCs and sort of strategic partners. After the 2001 and 2002, where we were finding out which companies were going to make it through and so on, I decided, because I'd really come from a non-operating background, that I was going to jump out into operating roles. So the first one that I did was as VP of Affinity Internet. Affinity Internet was a company that was doing about sort of a little over 15 million in revenue, was losing about $6 million a year, had about $1 million left in the bank, and was sort of searching for a business model that would see it survive. What I saw in it was a web platform that I thought could be really interesting for small businesses to be able to grow their business, and then also to be able to offer to other businesses, larger organizations that wanted to roll out what we now call web services or software as a service. And so I spent about 4 years there. We ended up growing the company to profitability and then getting it to about 55 million in revenue. And then we sold it in 2007 to one of our big competitors, Hostway, for just under 100 million. And so it was a really tough ride at Affinity. It wasn't easy. There was a lot of figuring out to do. But I think what you learn in the US when it comes to marketing is you've got to try a lot of different things, and you can't be discouraged when something doesn't work. You've got to respond and react and so on. So then I jumped. Affinity was actually based in Los Angeles, so that took me down to LA, where I've been ever since in 2003. So I've now been 8 years in LA. John Scull, who's sitting over here in the blue shirt. Nice shirt, John. Very nice. John's always tried to get me back up to Silicon Valley, and I keep trying, but I keep on getting stuck in LA. So then AuthenticClick and Bigger Boat were two early stage startups. AuthenticClick was traffic quality intelligence, and we were launching this new web-based service. We rapidly recognized in 2008 that things were going to be difficult, so we sold it pretty quickly to a competitor, not for a big number, but it was okay. Bigger Boat actually was the classic 2008 meltdown, so Tim Draper had funded it. He was all happy with how everything was going. He came back after his holidays and he pulled the plug on our funding, so we had to shut the company down. And then Pictage, where I was CMO, was a software as a service company that was an early stage growth company focusing on professional photographers. And I grew the photographer base from about 6,000 photographers to about 15,000 photographers, and the consumers, to about 4 million consumers on a monthly basis, purchasing product and so on from about just under 1 million. And now I'm CEO of DreamHost. I recently went there. DreamHost is a web app hosting company and going into cloud computing, cloud services as well. And it's a lot of fun because we serve now 300,000 customers. We have about 1.5 million domains hosted, and it's a growing business, which is really cool. I live in Venice Beach with my family. My daughter loves birds, that's why I put that picture up there. So what is engagement marketing? Well, it's definitely no longer the box, and many of you guys have heard this over and over again. Obviously, the US is a massive, television advertising market. It's like $60 billion a year. So it's still a huge channel for getting to consumers, but pretty much, one of the few companies that is a growth company or early stage company that I actually saw be successful with television was actually GoDaddy, which was in my space, has now been going through a private equity deal at $3 billion valuation. They were very successful, but they bet a lot. They did a Super Bowl ad, $3 million. They had $4 million in the bank, and they attracted a lot of attention, and that was an interesting marketing strategy. But most of us can't really do that. So engagement marketing is all about using the new tools that we have, the social media tools and so on, to openly engage with our customers, with our partners, and with our prospects in an open and authentic manner. And it's a two-way conversation. And I think I've been backward and forward to Australia over the last 10 years quite a bit. I can't say that I really, know everything that's happening on the ground, and I know there's been a lot of change over the last 10 years, but I think the traditional approach, which is, I'm the company, you're the customer, and there's this sort of separation in between, and almost like a personal barrier in between, just doesn't work in the US anymore, particularly if you're an early stage company and you're trying to build relationships, get community going, get people to start referring business to you. It's got to be a two-way conversation. That means you've got to be prepared to be out there. You've got to be able to go where your customers are. So that means social media, that means events around the country, looking for a combination of web contact as well as in-person contact, trade shows, even creating your own little community events around the country. It really doesn't matter what industry you're in. I know I've been in a lot of internet industries, but I've seen this work in other industries as well. And you've got to be accessible everywhere. And it is a little nerve-wracking. I mean, I have 300,000 customers right now, and they know where to find me. I've had calls on my cell phone. I've had people direct message me on Twitter, and so on. But in actual fact, if you look at it as an opportunity to understand what's going on in their mind, if there's a problem, maybe they have a product suggestion and so on, it can really accelerate your growth. And this is why, because this is actual data of DreamHost where I am right now. The yellow bar is the customer growth that's come purely through referral sources. So these are other customers referring customers to DreamHost over the last 4 years, and we're only sort of a little over halfway into 2011, I should say. Sorry. And then the blue bar is paid sources, paid marketing, trade shows, and all that sort of thing that we can track back to that. So, and this is actually pretty consistent no matter what the business. In an internet scale business, you definitely see these kind of trends a lot because you're getting lots and lots of customers, whether they're consumers or whether they're businesses and so on. But even in a business where you have fewer customers and maybe your target is to get to 100 customers in the US because they're big companies, you will still see this kind of trend. It's typically around 2/3 of your customers in the US are acquired through referral, through word of mouth, and about the last third is acquired through paid marketing and so on. And so that's why engaging with your customers, giving them a forum to be able to talk about you, to be able to pass on information about you, to be able to vent about you even, is incredibly important in the US. People love to vent. They love to they love to have drama and then have that drama resolved. In fact, you know, the redemption story, you know how there's only ever 10 stories in the world, in movies and all that sort of thing? The story of the redeemed person or the redeemed company is probably one of the most powerful stories, particularly in the US market. So, so don't be afraid of people venting about you. Engage, get involved, understand what's going on. So two-way means social. And I'm not going to go too much into social media because I'm sure you guys have, you know, had oodles of social media, you know, training and that sort of thing. I'll just go into it a little bit. But it is Facebook. You know, companies now have a very great way to engage on Facebook with fan pages where people can be a fan of yours. And if you manage that page well and you really start to drive stories with comments and so on, you can start to sort of propagate the awareness of your business through your community, through your partners, and ultimately through customers. It's very powerful. Twitter as well. Twitter's a much more sort of immediate, direct way to engage. I've seen a lot of stats actually on, you know, the differences between Facebook and Twitter, and essentially, you know, if you look at all the major companies like Apple and, you know, a lot of the highly professional B2C companies, they'll typically post to their Facebook page once a day. Twitter can be 3 or 4 times a day. But the average ends up, typically the most optimal average where people actually click through on links and respond, typically ends up being about 2 times a day on Twitter. So there's not a huge difference, but you know, Facebook, it tends to be more for newsworthy things that you want to put out there and you want to drive people to comment and engage in, you know, in a little bit more long form. Twitter's more about instantaneous gratification, the viral aspect. I'll get into a little bit more about that. Forums as well, you know, setting up a forum for your business straight away through using any forum software is just so essential in the US, because a forum, distinct from Facebook and Twitter, enables your customers, as they become customers of yours, because you can provide a login and so on, to have a much more private conversation about issues. So it's sort of, it means that, you know, particularly if, for example, you're a B2B2C company and you're serving a business, they don't really want to see this dialogue going on in the public sphere about issues they're having with their customers or anything like that. So a forum is a great way to do that. You know, most of your web hosting companies, both in Australia and the US, will have forum software that you can just install and away you go. Blog, of course, blog is essential. You know, WordPress is now the biggest blogging software in the world. In terms of the number of installs, it just went over 50 million worldwide for both blogs and websites. So very easy to set up, making sure that you're starting to put news out. And a blog post doesn't have to be long. It can be 3 paragraphs with an image. And that's enough. And people put it on their feed and so on. And then the final one, which is one that I've really been experimenting a lot with over the last few years, is video. Video is incredibly powerful for engaging with your customers and creating this two-way conversation. And I'll get into that a little bit more. So Facebook fan page, a couple of things about that for those of you who sort of don't use Facebook so much from a business perspective is, you know, I hope all of you understand the distinction between being, you know, on Facebook as a user, but then having a company fan page. The company fan page is a separate thing. You know, our fan page is facebook.com/dreamhost. And a couple of little tips here is that always an image post is best. So when you've got all the choices where you can do a status update and so on, or generally pick the image post. And pick an image. Even if you don't have an image, find one that kind of represents what you're trying to say and put it up there, because images are visual, they're engaging, people are going to be, it's going to attract them to what you're saying. You can make it funny. You know, you can have an image that sort of is juxtaposed against what you're trying to say. The other cool thing about image posts is this sort of tagline here. You can actually change this with an image post later on. So what we often do is we'll maybe post on Facebook about a blog article, but do something provocative. Ask a question. You know, to get engagement, you've got to ask a question. You know, what do you think about X ? And then say what we think about it. The beautiful thing is that with an image post as distinct from any other type of post on Facebook, you can actually change that text out at a later point. So if you all of a sudden see that you're getting all these comments and it's skewing a particular way, you can actually go back in, change out that text, that caption if you'd like, and no one knows. And so you can sort of you can refine your caption over the day and make it more relevant as the audience sort of comments and so on. It's one of the little tricks. With Facebook, it's all about sort of maximizing your comments. Facebook, like Google, has an algorithm that if anyone likes your page, your post won't necessarily show up in the Facebook feed of the news feed of that person who's liked your page. Facebook has an algorithm which determines which posts show up. The more relevant, i.e. the ones that have the more comments, the ones that have the more comments from your friends, etc., are more likely to show up in your feed. So that's where you want to do posts that are kind of more provocative, stimulate comment. It's not, asking a question and so on, really, really important. Good way to engage. Also, the other thing is you can see that with the image posts, you can really start to build a personality for your company. Our personality at DreamHost is very edgy, irreverent. I've got a lot of devs who are, heavily tattooed, heavily pierced, sort of hair, shorn on one side and they're not on the other. Incredible developers, but it's a really sort of particular culture. They're all open source junkies. So with images, you can really start to develop a personality for your company because those images will show up as well when anyone comes to your Facebook page. Twitter as well. Twitter is access because if you're not on Twitter in a company sense, then you're missing out big time. Because so I'm DreamHost Simon on Twitter. So I use my company name and then I use my first name. Before I was at a DreamHost, I was Pictage Simon. And so people can search you, they can find you really easily. And the great thing about Twitter is that people can mention you and get a response. So you don't have to be following them to see that they're calling out to you, basically. So in the case of this guy over here, Rourke Bob, he says, DreamHost Simon, the pop-up message got a bit annoying since it appeared on every page I clicked onto. Already a customer, so it was no use. This was related to, we did a promotion, there was a pop-up on the home page, and it happened that it was appearing each time someone clicked on a new tab. So I immediately pinged my VP Marketing, said, fix this. He actually tweeted back later saying, hey, I saw that was fixed, cool, So it's a way of giving people direct access to you as the CEO or as the founder and so on, and customers love that. They love the access, particularly here in the US. Here's another example of one where, this guy just actually mentioned DreamHost Care. By the way, this is another little trick with Twitter. With your company, set up 2 accounts. One which is your company name, which, by the way, if someone else is squatting on your name, you can actually get it back off Twitter. We just did that with one of our subsidiary products called Ceph. But also set up a kind of like a customer support Twitter account. We call ours DreamHost Care. I set this up as soon as I came in because the company before I joined had this long stream of sort of positive marketing things and then customer care issues, and it was just a mess. So that's another thing to do. But then also they added me, any chance we could get Diaspora on one-click installs on shared hosting plans. So this is a product suggestion coming through Twitter. I looked at it, I was familiar with Diaspora, which is a open source software for social networking that enables you to set up your own social network, and it's sort of considered maybe a threat to Facebook at some point in future if enough people do it, because it gives you a lot more control over your personal information. So, the great product suggestion coming through Twitter. This one here, actually, this was a little self-serving because Michael Sharkey, who's one of the 3 Sharkey brothers, who has Bizla, the Aussie company that's coming into the US, he came and visited us down in LA, and so he tweeted about visiting and so on. And then this last one, the other thing, this is not being afraid of what else is out there. This one is still down, decided I'll be writing about this probably tomorrow rather than today. Have you tried CEO DreamHost Simon? This is a girl who lives in northern Scotland, has a DreamHost account. One of the servers that she was on went down. We had a drive issue, a RAID drive issue that we were replacing. And so, she ended up, we ended up having a bit of a challenge with her because she's very vocal. She's in the music industry over there. But once again, the fact that she tweeted about it enabled me to take action. It was great. Now, I know not all customers will be like this because with hosting and so on, you tend to have people who are quite vocal. So the sort of more business customer is not necessarily going to be like that, but you would be surprised. And of course, using the tools that are out there, the co-tweet and so on, you can actually monitor. On my desktop, when I'm in the office, I have two screens. One's got a lot of my email and stuff, and then my other screen is always with my whole Facebook and Twitter stream. So that's got my own tweets. It's got a search of DreamHost, so if anyone's tweeting about DreamHost, it pops up and I can see it and respond to it. It's got Facebook, etc. So it's like my dashboard for seeing what's going on out in the social media world. Does anyone recognize this?
Yeah. Rome.
Where is it?
Rome.
Yes, we're in Rome.
Well, the middle bit.
This is the Roman Forum. Has anyone been to the Forum?
A week ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Isn't it amazing to stand there, 2,100 years ago? It was where debate happened. It was where, and I think you've got to remember that forums breed debate. And remember that the forum was sort of a bounded place. It was a place where people could come. It was open, but I think the thing to think about a forum that's very important is the distinction is not totally public. You want it to be private. You want to be able to have robust debate with your customers or your partners about things that you may not want to be out there on the web. At Pictage, we built an incredibly active community on our forums through encouraging people to comment on the forums, having our employees, myself included, we were all active, we were watching for comments, we were jumping in and so on, lending support. And that can be another fantastic way of engaging with your customers, building this community out. So I strongly recommend that. And the other cool thing is that it provides an opportunity for really authentic experiences as well, because in a private forum, you'll often have customers that just talk about stuff that's not necessarily relevant to the business. It's something that they need help with. It's a personal issue and so on. So it provides a really great opportunity for you to engage and get more personal, when you're not directly with them and so on. In this case, this was a photographer who felt bad because she'd asked all the men in a photo to take off their hats, and then she realized that one guy took off his hat. He was kind of uncomfortable, and so she was sort of putting it out there basically on the web, and she, it creates this opportunity for other people to lend support. Blogs, well, how many of you actually have an active blog? Okay, good. That's really good. And how many of you would blog once a week or more frequently? Once a month?
Every day.
Every day. Great. That's really good. Yeah. So, people often think that a blog is kind of hard to maintain, but the cool thing about blogs is that what you really want to do is sort of build a library of content that you can start to put out there and schedule on your blog. It could be a customer testimonial. It could be a story about how you, obviously with the customer's permission, about how you helped a customer with a particular issue, and so on. And always try and give things personality, because you want people to put it on their feed, you want them to read it, you want them to comment, and you want them then to tweet about your blog to their universe of Twitter followers and drive more people back to your company. So, start out with a goal of probably once a week would be a really good goal, and keep it short, keep it to 3 paragraphs about something with a photo that you're going to put up on your blog, and you'd be surprised at how you start to get people engaged, and you start to really get your customers sort of seeing that you've got a personality as well, not just corporate, which is very, very important in the US. I mean, one of the classic things that a lot of Aussie entrepreneurs, actually myself included, do when you come to the US is, you know, in Australia we're sort of straight into the business. You know, you go and have a lunch, it's like boom, straight into the talking about what you're there to talk about. In the US, you've probably heard this many times, but it is absolutely true, and I still catch myself doing this. You've got to, you know, it's about having a dialogue, it's about getting to know them first. It's about, you know, building the relationship first, then talking about the business, and then closing out with building the relationship at the end. Very, very important. And that's what blogs do for you, you know, at a distance. They basically help you build a relationship, build a personality, and so on. The other very important thing here is open and authentic. So be candid about status. This is actually something I pulled from our site. We have a site called DreamHost Status, which is public. It's available to anyone to access. And we put up all of our outages or all of, you know, any issues that we have on the whole DreamHost platform. You know, we've got about 5,500 servers across 3 data centers. So we got hit with a denial of service attack this morning. Thankfully, it wasn't the entity anonymous, because that could literally take you down, you know, as they did earlier this year. But immediately we posted it up on our status page. We weren't sure how many customers were affected. We knew that it was some racks of our servers with particular IP addresses and so on. But we were very candid about it, and then we post comments on a regular basis to update people. And you'll as you sort of spend more time here in the US, you'll know that being candid about these things really can pay off, because customers love a certain amount of authenticity. Of course, you're not going to go out there and say, unless this actually happened, like, we suck, you know, we're horrible at operations, or something like that. But being candid about what's happening, what you're doing to fix it, and then giving people updated status is incredibly important. One of the classic, you know, complaints that I hear from US sort of companies, investors, and so on that I introduce to my Aussie, you know, colleagues and so on is, wow, like, you know, we had this great meeting and then they just sort of disappeared, you know, for 3 weeks. You know, maybe you know, someone went back to Australia or whatever it was, but you know, having that constant contact, making sure that you're staying in contact also applies in the business relationship, in the way in which you're engaging. Very, very important. People expect that. And then the last thing is what I've been doing quite a lot over the last few years from an engagement marketing perspective is video. Because motion is probably the most powerful thing to bring emotion to any sort of experience for your customers. And so just to finish off, I wanted to show you a few things that we did. The first one is actually let's see. Oh yeah, let them tell a story. So this is something you can do very easily with your customers.
I grew up with a very artistic community. I was in love with how different painters used to light.
I have a fine art degree, so I started in painting. I loved pencils because they had like a very precise line.
How's the sound? Is that good?
Well, I thought I was going to be a musician until everyone told me I wasn't going to be a musician.
I remember the very first day that I saw the Rio video. From that point on, my life changed.
I started taking pictures of all the bands that I was playing in.
A lot of people view my work as something that's not within the confines of what a stereotypical wedding portrait would be.
The most important thing about photography is who you are. It's not about just the moment, it's how I feel about that moment.
I like to reveal my personality in my photography.
I was very interested in expressions of people and the lighting that makes this picture look so beautiful, and you can't stop looking at it.
I was able to appreciate the process of creating an image, not just snapping a shot.
I think every wedding photographer at some level is a psychologist. What makes a person smile with a really big smile, and what makes a person smile with a soft, romantic, nurturing smile.
I really want to push the realness of the person to come out.
I could probably tell you what is going on in every corner of the room. It's like I'm reading the minds of all the people around me.
Photographers are artists first. They are authentically thrilled to be in this business.
Pictage is dedicated to serving professional photographers and enabling their success.
Pictage is a bunch of photographers running around helping photographers.
It's not only a company that does my prints and works with my customers, but a resource that I can rely on.
You've got a skill, you've got a talent, you've got something that's potentially unique, but what you often don't have a lot of is time.
There's a whole series of things involved in the business of photography that can take their time away from those things that they're so passionate about.
Pictage lets me focus on what I'm good at, which is taking pictures and being an artist.
Moments happen and you have to react to it.
So the point of that is that whole video cost me, it was like about $3,000 to make. So what I did is I identified a number of customers that I thought would be cool on camera. We set up a little mini studio in our office, which was literally just a room that didn't have windows, and you know, and I got found a filmmaker, you know, through my network who was prepared to come in and shoot. It was just him and a camera person and do an edit, and we just had our customers tell our story. And then I was able to use that video in many different forums to engage with my customers, to engage with potential new customers when I went on road shows around the country and was up in front of other photographers, to sort of show that we care, to show that we get our customers and so on. So video is incredibly powerful, particularly when you allow them to tell their story. It's not about you, or it's not about you as the company, it's about them. And as they tell their story, they will naturally start to talk about how you help them. And you get some really, really incredible moments that come out there. Another one is charity. As you'll find in the US, charity is incredibly important. To have your company be involved in charity.
I really think it's important when you have a concentration of talent like we have here to take the opportunity to give back to the community. And I think of the power of images and the power of photography. And I think of how great photographers are. And so this kind of event, to me, are just a very natural outgrowth of the special place that Pictage has in the world of professional photography.
I thought that the vision behind this shoot today was just so inspired, and it was just the kind of thing that you just have to be part of.
I think the funnest thing for me is to see the students actually getting an excitement for what we do. And it's cool for them to see that confidence come out. You see a lot of shy people, and then we give them the camera and we encourage them with that, and then they just run with it.
And then there's another moment, another lonely boy sitting down at lunch table, and I sat down next to him, and he totally opened up, was shooting all day, was borrowing my camera, and I totally had him pegged wrong. But once he got that camera in his hands, he completely changed.
You know, there's a lot of times when the path can really go towards a negative or positive way. And I think the more opportunity that kids have to be creative, that creative outlet is going to, you know, foster a positive direction in their life.
If you're there when, like, one of the little boys or girls takes a shot, and then all the other kids come around them and it's like, look at this, look what I got. Their eyes and their smiles just light up, and it's just like, it's like a Kodak moment.
And now, after the event, when we've come back here and they're getting their certificates, you can just see the confidence that it's brought in them that, hey, I can do this.
The kids, I think that they were able to see something different besides what they normally get on a day-to-day basis. This experience is going to be once in a lifetime.
You know, in the same context as these kids are going home with a new confidence, wow, I can do something. I think these photographers go home with a new perspective on maybe a new way that they can contribute, a new thing that they can do that's really cool.
I am so grateful that we got the chance to be here. I feel like I'm going to leave this a better photographer.
selfishness. There's nothing in life that can pull you out of that like hearing a child laugh, seeing a child smile. We all receive just as much, if not more, than what these children receive. They gave us more than they'll ever realize that they did.
So this was something that, actually this is Mike Larson. He invented this thing called the camera toss, where he takes his $15,000 camera and he puts it on motor drive and he throws it up in the air, about 20 feet in the air. He does it like, he's done it over water, he's done it in all different locations. It's a lot of fun. But this is an example of, you know, in the US I know we had photographers as customers. So we were able to engage them, you know, in this fantastic experience. So what this was is I had a trade show in Las Vegas. I knew about the Boys and Girls Clubs, which many of you may not know about, but it's clubs that basically for $20 a kid can be a member, and so it helps out, you know, families where they can drop them off at the club over the summer, and they've got all sorts of games and activities and that sort of thing. And so I said, well, you know, I contacted the local Boys and Girls Club in Las Vegas and said, you know, why don't we bring in 10 photographers, we'll supply the cameras, and let's do a day of, you know, teaching them how to shoot. Now, a lot of the photographers there are like world class. People who are charging out, you know, $25,000, $30,000 a day, and the kids didn't know it. But you know, it was just such a fantastic experience, not only for the kids, which is, you know, what it was all there about, but also for my employees, for the photographers, and so on. And so, being of service is incredibly important in terms of engaging in the US with your community. The sooner you can sort of pick something that you can do, and there's just oodles of opportunities to do that. At DreamHost, you know, we don't have photographers, but one thing that I'm doing, I've just set it up for December, is with an organization called City Year, which is a national organization, but we're doing it with the LA branch. What they do is they help kids stay in high school, particularly in high schools that have a high dropout rate. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to go in, and I'm going to take all my company, so 120 employees, you know, some will stay back doing tech support and so on, and we're going to paint murals on, you know, on the asphalt playground area and on the walls and so on, and we're going to do it with a school that sort of is trying to become more of a science and maths magnet school. So the murals are going to be, you know, science and technology and computers and all this sort of thing. So we're sort of beautifying their school, and then in addition to that, I'm sort of leveraging a relationship I have with Dell to basically build out a computer lab for the school. That's another great example of, you know, finding a path to being of service. It helps with your customers, it helps with your employees, and it's a great way of marketing. So I'm going to pretty much wrap it up. The final thing I wanted to say is, put yourself out there.
Happy Friday. It is a little over a week since I did my last video. I think it's actually about 9 days. So sorry for the delay, but I wanted to actually wait until we got...
So what this is this is shot with my iPhone. So every single week, I get on my iPhone, wherever it is. I'll actually probably do one today from somewhere up here.
We know that
I turn the camera around, you know, this is an iPhone 4,
down to 1 hour.
and I handhold it just with an arm.
Congratulations to those folks involved on the tech side, and also
I do a video between sort of 4 and 6 minutes updating my team on everything that's going on, and then I post it to our internal video location, which is actually a YouTube site.
You know, one of the
private
things
YouTube
in the
site.
news this week in tech.
So I'll switch that off. But it's you know, one of these ways where even with your own employees, particularly as you become distributed and you're over here, think about those kind of ways that you can engage with folks back in Australia to get them, to really give them a sense of what's going on and where you're at. I mean, here you are, if you're coming here to Silicon Valley, I mean, there's incredible places that you can go. You can go to University Avenue, Palo Alto, and, you know, go to think it's now called Cafe Venezia, and I've seen like Steve Jobs pull up there, you know, and people just sitting in that cafe, VCs talking, and so on. You can go to Stanford, you can go, you know, Berkeley, all these incredible places, and give your team, even if it's a team of 5 people, a really rich perspective of what's going on. And what that does is it arms them to be better with your customers, to sort of get a broader perspective, to engage better, because they have a much richer perspective on what you're doing and where you're at. And you know, the first 2 videos, of course, were higher production value. This one, literally, I take it, I do no editing, I upload it. That's it. You know, low production value. iPhone, you can do it really quickly, and people really appreciate it in the organization. So just to recap, engagement marketing, it's all about using all the touch points that are available to us. It's social media, it's video, it's forums, it's blog, and so on, and not being afraid of it. You know, getting out there, putting it out there, it'll give you personality, and it'll really help. Be authentic and responsive. So people, you know, if you are going to be on Twitter, make sure that you are monitoring, you know, if people are tweeting you or commenting about you and so on, so that you can respond, because they really appreciate that. And then get some emotion in the mix. Start using video in these various ways. Start small. If you just want to use video internally for your company, do that. I mean, most of you probably get on Skype video back home, you know, when you're over here. It's exactly like Skype video, basically. I mean, you could even do it from Skype. You could do it from your camera. So that's it. I know I'm between here and lunch, so I'm going to wrap it up.
Well, first of all, let's join me in thanking Simon very much. Simon